Goings on at the Zondo Commission into state capture. Now, today the son of former SAA board chair Dudu Myeni was testifying. It's claimed he received 2 million rand from a Mpumalanga development project that aimed at building housing for workers, but he couldn't remember the details. To discuss, we're joined by Mpumalanga, who's following the commission for us. Welcome, Mbali. So we know Dudu Myeni linked to SAA. There are lots of claims around her. Just tell us why her son has been called to testify and what's this all about?
Okay, so at the heart, part of the reason he's been called to testify is a 2 million rand he received from this project. It's unknown why he received the 2 million rand, and that's what the commission is trying to get down to the bottom of. It's understandable. He explained to the commission that he got the 2 million rand for services rendered. He claims that he had provided this development project with designing services. However, the owners of this project are actually disputing this claim, saying that, quite frankly, they were subcontracted by Myeni's company, which is called Premier Attraction 1016. And it seems as though when he could no longer deliver on the development project, he then subcontracted this VNA company to take over from him, and he then got the 2 million rand for that. But he obviously disputes that, of course. He obviously disputes that. So it's just his word against the CEO and the owners of that particular company.
And I understand we haven't got there yet, but the claims are that money was then channeled further down, his mother involved. Just tell us those allegations, which still need to be tested.
I think that is what is at the center of these investigations. What happened to the 2 million rand that was paid into his business account? We understand that the 2 million was then later paid in 3 tranches to another company that was called Isibonelo Construction, also for services, allegedly for services rendered. But we understand that a certain Mr. X has denied these claims by Myeni that this was for services rendered. We know that Myeni testified before the commission that he doesn't quite remember what exactly he was paying these amounts for. However, he believes and he is of the view that it was for services rendered and it was business related. However, we have this Mr. X denying these claims, saying that it was not for business, it wasn't for anything. If anything, Mr. X is one of those witnesses who's been protected, whose identity is being protected by the commission because of threats to his life that have been confirmed by the commission. We understand early this morning we heard evidence leader Kate Hofmeyer relaying some of these threats to the commission chair, and she rather got emotional when she was talking about this story and talking about this particular witness. We understand that in the afternoon he then took the stand and he started giving his testimony, talking about how he was approached by an employee of the Umhlatuzi Water who had at the time in 2015 told him that they were trying to get money out of a particular project that they'd already been working on, and they just needed money to go into his account, which is Isibonelo Construction, business account Isibonelo Construction, and then leave that account and go into other accounts that he says he didn't know where. But at the heart of this,
so that would be clear money laundering.
Yes.
He's saying he was approached. Now tell us about Dudu Myeni's possible involvement.
So at this stage, it's alleged that these monies that were moving from one account to the next may have made it to the coffers of Dudu Myeni and possibly former President Jacob Zuma. It's alleged that the 2 million was actually a kickback, allegedly a bribe for having facilitated, or thank you fee for facilitating some contracts to be awarded to particular companies. That is where we would like to believe the evidence is going. And that is what Advocate Kate Hofmeyer has alluded to this morning when she presented, the evidence and this particular topic to the commission chair this morning. We do expect to hear more from this particular witness who is being protected, whose identity is being protected, who's going to be giving us more detail as to how these monies moved around. But I cannot talk about this particular leg of testimony without talking about Ian Sinton. This is not the first time we're seeing a pattern such as this one. We've seen it in Transnet, we've seen it at Eskom, where Gupta-linked companies would get money from these SOEs, and the money would immediately move from one account to the other, whether it was Tigita, whether it was Trillion, whatever. All of these monies would move around, and it spoke to money laundering. Yes, it did take a while for the banks to pick up on this. However, the banks do watch closely when these activities unfold, when you see money moving quite swiftly in between accounts.
And it's always complicated, but following the money to the end goal often leads to that claim of bribery, the end participant. We'll follow this. Thank you very much. The testimony of Mr. X being protected, and Mbalentla Mthethwa is following goings on at the State